couldn't say no to any of the foods I was addicted to as long as I was eating carbohydrates. I couldn't control it at all. And it just made me feel depressed, anxious, and I knew I would just gain the weight back. That was horrifying. I mean, back in the day when I was eating the fat-free period, I would eat those Snackwell cookies and it would be the whole container.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching our videos. If you'd like to support us some more, you can explore our homemade natural skincare products at purelytallow.com. Thank you so much for supporting my small business. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Carnivore Revolution. I'm Serena, and today my guest is Lori Balue. She's a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner who's helping women over 50 lose weight for good and reclaim the second half of their life to live pain-free, stay active, and reverse aging beautifully. She is on a mission to empower women to choose health as their wealth over becoming overweight and having more health issues as they age. Thank you so much for being here, Lori. I'm excited for this conversation because I'm 51 and I need some help.
Yeah, I'm kinda getting that from a lot of other women too. It's like, "Oh my gosh, you've been through menopause, you kinda know the route, you know what
Yeah.
to expect and what to do." And that is part of my lived experience. It's so powerful to know that we don't have to decline in our age just because we're aging. We just need to know how to age correctly so that we don't have to suffer. So
Yeah, age is just a number. And I really believe that we can live until we die instead of just dying very slowly. So let's talk about your story, though, how you came to be a low carb helper who helps people, a low carb coach, and how you became low carb, because so many people feel like the way we eat is crazy. And so I always like to hear people's story on how they ended up here and what it healed and what it made better for them.
yeah, I mean, what at this point, what I think is crazy is not doing a low carb diet because I suffered my whole life with obesity and depression and
Mhm.
not living a quality life. And I mean, I've heard your story with all of what you've had to go through. Was put on the Atkins diet. Thank God my mom put me on the Atkins diet back in junior high because I had gotten up to 200 pounds as an
Mhm.
adolescent and had severe depression. And I remember her taking me to a psychologist to try to get help for me. And, I wouldn't talk. So they wouldn't even talk to me because they said there's nothing they can do because I wouldn't talk. And so she was an Adele Davis follower. She was trying to figure out my brother's hyperactivities and everything there. So she put me on the Atkins diet. And well and behold, she found out I do better with amino acids. Who'd have thought, right?
Right.
So I was eating the Atkins bread. I dropped 50 pounds. My metabolism reset. So I was luckily able to go through high school at 150 pounds and not 200 pounds. So I didn't have a complete disaster of a high school experience. But I was, I had and I reversed the depression that I had had. So probably still had anxiety and a low level of depression going forward because, from what I'm understanding, I had food sensitivities to wheat and dairy because I could look back all the time when I was eating dairy. I was always clearing my throat. I was always, uncomfortable with eating dairy. So I wouldn't be surprised if I had leaky gut back then and created all
Mhm.
these food sensitivities. That was
Yeah.
the biggest problem. And so basically, I didn't know that that was the fix back then. I thought it was a diet. So I ended up doing all the low fat diets and starving myself, trying to figure out how to keep the
Mhm.
weight off. And so by the time I hit my mid-30s, I was up to 225 pounds,
Mhm.
and, the diets were no longer working for me. Depression took back over, and I was getting allergies, severe allergies, bronchitis, sinusitis, coughing up phlegm all the time, had no idea why. I go to the doctor, they just give me a breathing machine. I did
Mhm.
get an immunized I got the shots to help reduce allergy symptoms,
Mhm.
which did make a difference because I got it down to, like, 1 month out of the year. So in March, because I was severely allergic to, like, the ragweeds, the mulberry trees, and, that was my allergy season at that point, and
Mhm.
I went on a fat-free diet. That was what you did back in the mid-30s. And it's interesting, like, I would lose weight. I had 2 more children, but I never got healthy. I
Mhm.
never really reduced my risk for, depression, although it got worse every time my weight went up. And I
Mhm.
was just trying to keep my weight under 200 pounds, and so I would, lose weight, gain it back, lose it, gain it back. Couldn't get off that merry-go-round of
Mhm.
weight regain. And
Mhm.
so that just took it took a toll on me. So I consider myself having lost my 30s and 40s to this obesity roller coaster ride that I was on. And it wasn't until I started exploring more ancestral health and
Mhm.
paleo diets. I started bringing in coconut milk. I think that started helping me feel better in my body. And I started reading about the wheat belly. I started reading Chris Kresser. I
Mhm.
started reading and understanding more about nutrition. And I even did the HCG diet. I lost a
Mhm.
lot of weight, gained it
Right.
all back.
Mhm.
And even on the paleo diet, I was still eating maple syrup and I was eating honey, and that still was not good. I could feel like a cloud coming down the street. Like I saw this snowbank come down the street one time, which is really odd to say in California because we don't get very much of that. But there was this cloud bank coming down the street, and that's what it felt anytime I had honey. I would just feel this fog come over my brain. If I was to eat any kind of wheat bread or have any kind of sugar like that, I would just get that brain fog. And I didn't like it. I didn't like living like that. I was like unhappy and uncomfortable. So all of a sudden, at that point in time, I was working at a natural food store. That's where I had more access to books. I was actually bringing in the books, reading the books, selling the books, and just really getting excited about functional health and nutrition. And then I found out about the keto diet, the bulletproof program.
Mhm.
That's where I went to a conference,
Mhm.
met a brain cancer survivor. He was a 10-year brain cancer survivor on keto, a body type scientist. And he took one look at me afterwards when I asked him a question, because I must have asked him about fruit. And he said, no, don't eat any fruit. So
Mhm.
that very day, I stopped eating trail mix, which is what I'd been doing because I
Mhm.
was a nibbler.
Yeah.
And I switched to bulletproof coffee. I dropped that very day I started keto, dropped 20 pounds. And that must have been about 53 or 54. But yeah, the thing that's really interesting is no matter what diet I tried, I could not get my brain to work. I
Mhm.
could not get the energy I needed to live life,
Mhm.
and I could not keep any weight off. I have never gained back the 20 pounds that I lost on that keto diet, period. And so how this helped me was it helped support my adrenals, gave me brain energy, and got me excited about life again. And that's when I actually certified in 2 functional health coaching programs and became an FDN.
Mhm.
Because now all of a sudden I'm like, wow, like the world is open, windows and doors are opening. I could see forward and get excited about life. That was what was so exciting. And I was already down to 185 pounds when I started this process. So I had been trying to starve myself and try to figure out how not to gain weight to 200 pounds. That was the goal at the time. Now I never have to worry about that anymore because all I started doing was just finding the next healing opportunity, which was ending up like, because when I first lost that 20 pounds, I didn't lose anything for 3 years. And this is huge because, ladies, we are healing our body. We are giving our body nourishment, and we have been dieting our whole life, and our body is starving. And so
Mhm.
we need to give our body the fat and the protein that it needs. And you may not lose weight until you get that process to happen.
Mhm.
And so I didn't lose anything for 3 years. And then I consider it like purging all the vegetable oils from the diet, repleting the body with collagen, bringing in all those nutrients. But at the
Mhm.
same time, I had to learn how to manage digestion.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I fixed my gut and managed digestion that I dropped another 15 pounds. And this is why you never give up. You just keep trying and you keep working on your healing opportunities. And it's meat and fat that really drives this process. And as women in menopause, it's just critical.
So, what about binging? Before you started a low carb diet as an adult, did you have issues with binging? Was that something that you dealt with, or was it just that you didn't eat healthy foods and so you gained weight?
I did have a binging. I'm one of those people who's I can't moderate. I'm more of an abstainer,
Me
and
too.
so I didn't know all of that. Basically, I couldn't say no to any of the foods I was addicted to as long as I was eating carbohydrates. I couldn't control it at
Mhm.
all, and it just made me feel depressed, anxious, and I knew I would just gain the weight back, and I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
That was horrifying. I mean, back in the day when I was eating the fat-free period, I would eat those Snackwell cookies, and it would be the whole container.
Me too.
Yeah, and it was like that all the time. It was not 1 donut, it was 2. It was not 1 cookie. Like, I would go to the mall for Mrs. Fields cookies, it was not 1 cookie, it would be 2. I could
Mhm.
never turn off
Yeah.
the
Even in
desire
high
to eat.
school, even in high school, I would not eat all day long just so I could stop at the store on my way home from school and get
Yeah.
one of those Entenmann's fat-free cakes. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I
The
remember those
Entenmann's
too.
fat-free. And I would think I could just eat the whole cake because I hadn't eaten all day and it didn't have any fat in it, so I could have as much as I wanted.
I remember that store. We had a store that was just down the street, and yeah, I remember going there when the kids were little, and it was, frozen yogurt. If
Yes.
it wasn't ice cream, it was frozen yogurt, so I convinced myself, and I even took my son there, and we would get frozen yogurt.
Have as much as you
I
want.
did this for years and
Yeah.
years and years, and I knew where all the frozen yogurt places were. I would
Same.
go and get soft serve ice cream all the time,
Mhm.
and there was no off switch, any of that, and it was just, I hated it. I hated living like that. So
Yeah.
once I found keto, I never turned back. I
Yeah.
I had full faith in it. I felt better than I'd ever felt in my whole life,
Mhm.
and there was no reason to ever cheat after that.
So
And
what about your family? Are they low carb too?
no, my brother is and the others are trying, but well, I ended up in a divorce last year, so my husband was not. My
Okay.
son is not. So I'm basically kind of a loner in this process, but brother does it with me. He reversed his diabetes during my
That's awesome.
program. He had
Yeah.
off his medications, so he's no longer diabetic. So that was good.
Mhm.
And we're working on my little sister. And my little brother's trying. He's a truck driver and he's trying to figure it out. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think the biggest problem is the digestion because this is something that I'm noticing with my sister is the absorption of the food we're eating that's not getting to the brain. It's
Mhm.
not getting through an inflamed gut. And if you can't correct your gut, you might take a lot longer to heal to be able
Mhm.
to get the nutrients into your body and into your brain because my sister would do low carb. She'd lose the weight, she'd lose inflammation, and I would hold her hand and then she just couldn't do it. She'd get depressed. She would eat the thing and it would just boomerang from there until
Yeah.
she started taking amino acids, could actually absorb the amino acids into her brain and turn off her food cravings. So now I see that correlation more thoroughly. And it is huge as
Yeah.
to how the brain can operate when you get the right nutrition in your body.
Yeah, and so many people, I'm so glad that she started again and that she's still trying because so many people will do that. They'll do great, they'll lose weight, they'll feel amazing. At our age or even a little bit younger, their joints stop to hurt. Like people start to feel really good. And then they go off for a cheat day or a cheat meal and they have a cheat week and a cheat month. And before they know it, they're back where they started and they'll say, oh, keto or low carb or carnivore, whatever, that didn't work for me. As soon as I stopped eating that way, I gained all of the weight back or all of my symptoms came back. It's like, duh, of course you did. If you went back to doing what you were doing before, of course that's going to come back and you're going to be in exactly the same boat you were in. It's because this is how we're supposed to eat. So I'm so glad that your sister didn't just give up and say, oh, this doesn't work for me.
Yeah, well, she's watched me and she's
Mhm.
also watched my brother. And when my brother first started working with me, he had cancer turned on and we did not know it. He had
Mhm.
all the markers in his Dutch test showing full on cancer, and it will show on a Dutch test.
Mhm.
And that was one of the first tests I was reading, so I didn't really understand it. I know I was concerned about it, but he didn't have a diagnosis at the time. But the fact that he corrected his metabolism, lowered his blood sugar, eats a ketovore diet, he reduced his risk for diabetes or turned it off. Basically, he's no longer diabetic. Now he has a chance to fight this cancer. And that's what's really good about that. And because he's doing that and putting all of his life force into this process of being healthy and living his best life, my sister sees this. She sees me. She sees what he's doing. She's fighting diabetes. She's fighting neuropathy. And those are powerful tools to know you don't want to be sick. And and you can see that you could turn it off. If you can see that other people are turning off this process, that
Mhm.
gives people hope. And that's what my message is too, is yes, we can turn off our disease causing genes in our body by what we eat. So it's not just about diet. It's
Mhm.
not just about the weight loss. How do you want your body to be in 5 years? And like you were saying, do we want to age and then just drop dead? We don't want to age and be sick in bed for 20 years
That's right.
with
Mhm.
with a disease and feel miserable. We want quality of life.
Mhm.
To get quality of life, we want to look beyond just the weight loss. Keep doing what we're doing. A cheat day doesn't mean anything. I mean, I work with all levels of women. So I in and out of carnivore all the time, but I'm also in my baking season because I work with women who are also just starting. And I'm using a food bridge concept where you make everything low carb. You don't ever go back to the old way. If
Okay.
you want to eat something, follow the low carb bridges and eat and make it low carb until you get to the point where you can transition more to protein and fat and vegetables or just protein and fat and find your healing opportunities. Just start. And we
Mhm.
don't ever have to look back. We just want to get excited and look forward to a future where we can have abundant energy and feel amazing. I was chatting with one of my clients who just finished up recently. She's 95% less pain than she used to have. She could not walk hardly. She would come home from work, collapse. She had to have a scooter in the house. Had so much pain, even had, because of the gas and bloating, she had to lie down after she was eating. All of
Mhm.
that's gone within 6 months. It's so powerful what food can do, and to try to backslide into that, you just need to be reminded, do you wanna be like that normal sick person you were, or do you wanna have exceptional health and really dial in a lifestyle that you can be proud of and happy to do?
Yeah. As a nutrition practitioner, do you get pushback from people? Like, do any of your clients or patients ever say to you, well, but a low carb diet isn't good for you? Or what about cancer? Am I not going to get cancer from all that red meat? Or what do you say to things like that? And do you find that other practitioners in your field are in line with you and your advice?
Well, that's interesting. I'm gonna start with that question first because with functional diagnostic nutrition, I'm still an outlier because I do a keto diet.
Right.
And everybody's always saying, and especially the thinner women, they're like, "We need carbohydrates." They're always saying that they can't get the nutrition they need or they can't get the energy they need eating a keto diet.
Hmm.
So I'm not gonna even go into the carnivore there, but and
Hmm.
I'm not seeing that. So there is that pushback. So I'm still on the odd side, even with that. And overall, with clients, most of them understand about cholesterol and meat as being healthier for the body, and they don't want to be on medications. And so they're willing to, they want to work with me because they've been on keto, failed, couldn't quite do it, still have the cravings, and
Hmm.
can't figure out what their healing opportunities are. So they want to run the labs, run 3 to 6 labs, find out what's wrong in the body because you could dial in your food sensitivities, dial in digestion, figure out what's going on with your cortisol and adrenals, and all of that ties together to build a body. Just like we take our car in, we got to take our body in sometimes. And sometimes it's not the gas or the fuel is not quite enough. What else is going on under the body? But there is a couple of clients that I've had that do worry about heart disease. And so I have to educate them. I
Hmm.
send them resources and I hold their hand and I get them to the point where they're feeling better in their body and they're feeling more comfortable with it. And basically, I'm always using doctor resources to
Hmm.
show them that these are the studies out there and you're going to be okay. But it's usually the resources that I have to send. And if I've got a client that doesn't wanna eat red meat right now, and so she's worried about AFib. That's okay, I'm gonna meet her where she's at.
Right.
Make sure she's still eating low carb, dial in the diet that's right for her body, and let her explore what it is she needs to do, because sometimes we have to address it and play with it and think about it and feel comfortable with the idea, and that's why there's so many stages with a low carb lifestyle in keto carnivore diets.
Hmm.
You could start in the beginning and just get started and work your way through it till you get enough knowledge and you feel comfortable with it so that you can go beyond that into
Hmm.
more of a keto carnivore and find the right carb. Find your carb code that's going to work for you. And it could be that you need to be carnivore and other people don't have the energy from carnivore. So why? Let's explore this and maybe being more keto with a higher fat diet is going to be more practical for someone while they're finding out what their healing opportunities are. And it could just be, that hormonal process when we're going through menopause. Let's find the balance. And
Hmm.
those are things that I addressed as well as this hormone
Yeah.
support.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the hormones. So we haven't talked about this in advance, so I don't know your opinion on this. But I started taking hormone replacement therapy about maybe I was 47. I'm 51 now, so it's probably about right. And I was scared. I took just the over the counter, the prescription progesterone that the doctor gave me. And he told me just to figure out how much I needed on my own. Um,
Ooh.
that if I woke, yeah, that if I woke up in the morning and I was groggy, I was taking too much. So I was up to a lot, like 300, but I was sleeping like a baby. I mean, I was loving the way I was sleeping. But I gained 10 pounds in a month. So I went to, and this was just my functional medicine doctor, just a regular doctor. And so I found a hormone specialist in the area, and he put me on hormones again, but less progesterone this time. I dropped to 10 pounds and I was feeling decent, but I got scared a few months in and I stopped taking it. And then a few months in, I was feeling anxious, and I was not sleeping well. I just, was not doing very well. I went back in and he said, but I already put you on progesterone. I was like, I know, but I was nervous about it. This went on like 3 or 4 times. And finally, last year, I committed to bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. I've been taking that for a little over a year, I think, and I feel pretty good. I was having some pretty severe symptoms, like hot flashes and things like that. I wasn't sleeping. I was not feeling good before I started taking them, even on a carnivore diet. So with all of that being said, what do you think about bioidentical hormone replacement therapy? And do you recommend that to people? And have you found that it helps?
It's definitely necessary as we get older, and some people react more to it than others. And so you do have to kind of find your balance, and it might be better to just titrate up slowly. But it's also like adrenal balance. If your adrenals are shot, you're going to have a harder time trying to figure this out. And then the other side of this that I want to address is if you have inflammation in your intestinal tract and you're not actually clearing your estrogen and your estrobolome is not functioning and you have beta glucuronidase elevated, you could have a buildup in your hormones with like estriol, or some of the estrogens could be elevated because they're not detoxifying. And that's one of the reasons I like to run labs before I would have people even take hormones, to check detoxification and to see how that's working in your body so it doesn't build up. And another, you could end up, so that's where it is. It's a lot to do with mineral balance and adrenals as well, getting that managed, making sure you have detoxification happening. And then um it's trial and error, really. It's really kind of hard. It's almost like a whack-a-mole. But the thing is, if we don't do it, then we end up with less bone mass and more brain dysfunction without the right hormones. Are you taking it as a pill, or are you taking them as a cream?
I'm taking it as a pill, and it is progesterone with, what would they put that with? Estrogen?
So they've got you on a combo, and
Yes.
the estrogen is a bioidentical estrogen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what I know about estrogen. It should not be swallowed.
Okay.
And so that one of the things you can do is get a topical, and also you could get the dots. But if because the problem with the estrogen when you swallow it, it turns into the more alpha estrogen, which can be more more detrimental to our health ongoing. But if we take it topically, it doesn't do that. So progesterone taken and swallowed is good,
Okay.
but estrogen should be topical.
Okay. I
And
go back in for a checkup soon, like just to
yeah.
double check my hormones and stuff, and I'll make sure I ask about that.
Yeah, and ask them to, you want to run a gut test to make sure you're detoxifying your estrogens,
Okay. Okay.
because the beta glucuronidase could be elevated. So you want to know that.
Right. Yeah,
But
that's a good point.
yeah, I like using, I use my, I for personally, I use a topical called Quicksilver that I get through Full Script, but it's something that only diagnostic, somebody who's a practitioner can order it for their clients. But
Okay.
it is a topical, it's highly absorbable, and I don't think I sleep well without my progesterone. So I'm definitely taking progesterone in the evening to help me sleep. Makes a big difference. And with the estrogen, mainly if you're in menopause and you know your hormones are low, it's definitely valuable to take it. I'm not quite sure I'm answering the question. What
You're
question
welcome.
was I specifically supposed to answer? I
Yeah,
was like going down
absolutely.
a rabbit hole.
No, yeah, and I know a lot of doctors, and like nurse practitioners and nutritionists. There are a lot of people with pretty serious opinions about bioidentical hormones and whether or not we should use them. But I know a lot of people that take them and say they'll take them for the rest of their
Oh yeah,
lives.
I,
They
I wouldn't stop taking it at all. But there's a couple of books out there that are really good to listen to. One of them is by, I'm going to look in my Audible really quick at the library. It is a book on estrogen, and it talks about everything that was done wrong in all the studies and not to be afraid of estrogen. It's
Okay.
called Estrogen Matters by Avram Bluming, Avrum Bluming. And what's really good about that book is it goes through all the studies and explains to why you don't need to be afraid of estrogen. So the problem with the estrogens was it was taken as a pill, and they were synthetic. And the problem with the progesterone at the time was that it was synthetic, and it was the progesterone that was synthetic, the progestin that caused all the problems. It was
Okay.
never even the estrogen that was causing a problem, but they didn't really read the studies right. And so estrogen, from all the studies that I've done, are all safe for the body, helps the brain function. and helps you have better bone mass. But we want to take estrogen topically, not
Okay.
as a pill, because of the fact that the liver has to change it and it changes it to estrone. It's going to
Okay.
change it to a more alpha
Okay.
estrogen that can be more damaging to the body long term, as more like estrogen dominance. And that's the other thing is, you don't want to just take estrogen. You always want to have progesterone with the estrogen. You want the two together because the progesterone helps balance out the estrogen and protects your body from too much estrogen.
Okay. Definitely something for all of us out there that are either considering hormone replacement therapy or are taking it. Definitely something for us to think about. And what kind of
Yeah.
exercise do you usually recommend for people? There's so much controversy and conflicting information as we get older. Should we still run? Should we sprint? Should we lift weights? What do you usually recommend for people?
Sprinting and lifting weights are the best ones for us to do, but getting out and having movement on a regular basis and turning your life into a health adventure gets you to have that energy that helps you burn and maintain your weight loss. Because if you're just going out once an hour and then you're sitting for the rest of the day, it's not going to really work to help you with that movement that you need for oxygen to the brain and the heart, and to really oxygenate the whole body and to give you all the benefits that movement gives you when you create a lifestyle around it. Like this today, I went out, I had a morning walk, I had tennis, and I usually try to get in as much movement as possible, and I fidget as much as you can. You could do squats around the house, you could do counter push-ups. The more movement we get, the better our health is going to be. But the problem that people are confused about is how much cardio to do. So
Mhm.
if you feel good and you don't feel exhausted and extremely hungry after a workout, then that might be working for you. But at the same time, when you overwork out, like if you're running every day and you're doing a lot of marathons throughout the year, you could be creating a visceral fat accumulation in the body. That's been shown by
Mhm.
Dr. Sean O'Mara. He'll
Mhm.
take MRIs of people, and if they're over exercising, they're going to increase oxidative stress and increase inflammatory fat. But if you sprint, the way our body was designed to just
Mhm.
have quick movement, lifting heavy things and quick movement, then your body depletes that visceral fat. So that's what's really exciting about it. And the problem with too much cardio, whether or not it's going to increase your cortisol levels is the issue. If your cortisol levels are already high, and that'll show on the Dutch test, then you want to keep your exercise more moderate. And so you want to find the balance that feels good. So from what I'm understanding, if you feel good after your exercise, then that was a good exercise for you. But if you feel exhausted and you feel like you need extra recovery and you're starving, it may not be the right exercise for your body. And so you want to kind of look at your labs and see if you really wanted to track it. How are you feeling when you're exercising? It should feel good.
Okay. And for the people out there that are new to this, that don't understand the carbs versus fat and protein thing, can you explain why we don't need carbohydrates to be able to have energy and exercise?
So our body can actually create glucose from protein. So that's a neoglucogenesis immediately when we need energy. But what we want to do is have fat. So if you're going to be going into an exercise, just take extra fat. You're going to be burning that fat in your body. And then even for myself, I'm a hiker. I'll go out for a 10-mile hike. I might have some bulletproof coffee beforehand, and then I might have like a keto break during the snack or whatever. So I might be burning the energy from those fats, but I'm also, as a half marathoner, I burn my body fat. And I've even done a hike to the Grand Canyon where I've hiked 17 miles down south and then back up again, from the river. And I wasn't even hungry. I was burning my own body fat.
Mm.
I was drinking a lot of salt, and I couldn't eat. Now, why couldn't I eat? Because I was getting actually energy from the sun and I was burning my body fat. And so that's some of the things that I'll notice is like I can't eat when I'm out exercising because I'm burning my body fat. And so I do more fasted exercises, but I do it with fat, and I might add collagen or perfect aminos, but those are so rapidly absorbed as energy that I don't need carbohydrates for my energy source. I never even use carbohydrates for an energy source. I actually eat less before I exercise, not more. When you want to just retrain your body, it might only take 3 days to a week to actually train your body to use fat and protein for that energy, and you just have to kind of flip the switch and just start moving it. You might feel tired initially, but don't exercise a lot
Mhm.
right in the switch when you're switching from carbohydrates to fat, but you don't need carbohydrates. I mean, Keto Savage, he doesn't do carbohydrates before his
Mhm.
exercises, and he's a bodybuilder on keto.
So as an older woman, as a mature woman who is very active, what does a typical day of eating look like for you?
So, well, today I'm on a sardine fast.
Me too.
Because
We're
I was
twinsies.
listening to your sardine, your video, and it was really good. And I'm like, I do need to do that because I let a few carbs creep in. I've been doing some baking and, I'm up 3 pounds. And so I'm like, well, all this is going to take is a couple of days of
Yeah,
sardine fast and I'll be back
absolutely.
into control. And so I love how I feel when I'm on a sardine fast. But normally it would just be, 4 eggs and some protein. And I have a hard time not eating all the bacon, so I'll cook up like a Peterson's bacon. There's may only 8 slices in there, and
Yeah,
so I'll try really hard to just eat 4 slices, but then by the end of the day, it's all gone.
it's all gone. Yep.
So and, I might make my own egg pudding where I put, like, 10 eggs into a blender, and I put coconut milk with that, as I have to be more dairy free as I'm sensitive to dairy, so I do use a lot of coconut milk,
Mhm.
and I'll whip that up and make myself a pudding, so you could either add cocoa to that or vanilla, and I'll make an egg pudding, and
Mhm.
and the reason I'm doing more fat, I have to be a higher fat, is because if I do too much protein, I feel more tired. So
Mhm.
my body does utilize that fat and helps my brain function better. So I
Mhm.
do use more of the fat. And I like bulletproof coffee because it gives me the energy to focus because I have an ADD brain and I
Mm.
need that extra focus. And so I may or may not do a bulletproof coffee, but I'm definitely doing, if I'm not doing bacon, I'm doing hamburgers with my eggs. Or
Mhm.
yesterday I had beef and 4 eggs. So I had like a half a serving of beef. I usually put a serving, like what a serving to me is 30 grams of protein
Okay.
is what I'll put aside as a serving so that I get muscle synthesis. So I'm very big about not going under that 30 grams of protein. Like if I
Mhm.
had a can of sardines, it's not quite 30 grams of protein. I'll throw some perfect aminos in there to
Okay.
try to get more protein. And so I might only eat 2 meals a day, but
Mhm.
it's always starts with eggs, beef, or bacon. And then I might end up having a couple of hamburger patties, or I might have some tuna with mayonnaise, and then I'll put some pork rinds with that. So, I mean, it's all I can't even remember to eat vegetables anymore. Try I swear I bought some arugula and I can't eat it.
Mhm.
I've been trying, you know, but, I don't think I'm eating enough, and that's
Mhm.
something I'm working on trying to do, is trying
Mhm.
to eat more protein, but
Yes.
at the same time, I'm also balancing my fat, so I probably do a 1-to-1 ratio at least with the fat to the protein.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good filling day. That's the thing people don't understand is that it's so easy in a lot of cases for a lot of people to only eat like twice. Some people eat once, the 1 meal a day thing. But twice is really doable for most people because you're just not hungry.
Right, right. And the thing is, if when I'm tracking, I'm actually looking at how much protein I got. I want to try to get 100 grams of protein, which is still kind of low,
Yeah.
but that's what works for me is about 100 grams of protein. But I'm going to throw collagen in there, the perfect amino, so I might get an extra 50 grams of protein that isn't meat.
Yeah.
And so that kind of helps fill the gap. So as a woman in menopause, that's been one of my tricks is to make sure I get that extra protein that way because I can't seem to eat enough. And
Mhm.
so if we can't eat enough, what are we going to do to get that extra hack in there to help support our adrenals, to help support our cortisol levels so that we feel good in our body and have brain function? So what I do with myself is kind of like every day I'm always kind of analyzing how I'm feeling. And sometimes I'll start eating that egg protein or whatever first thing in the morning at 6:30 in the morning. And other times I may not eat till 10 or 9, 10 or 11. It just depends on my mood. And then once sometimes when I open up my eating window, I might just eat for 3 hours and then be done with it that way. And I don't worry about that anymore, that, I'll just keep eating until my body just turns off. And it just tells me, "I'm done eating, you've had enough to eat." And that was I did have some, beef chili the other day that I made, and I ate a serving of that, a 30-gram serving, and my body said, "You're done eating," and I couldn't eat anything else, so that was and I like to finish early, like between 3 and 4 o'clock, because I always will gain weight if I eat really late.
Yeah, and if I eat really late, not only do I either gain weight or wake up feeling bloated, I wake up starving. If I eat late in the evening, I wake up so hungry. But the opposite happens if I skip dinner.
Yeah, it's really funny, right? I don't understand, I guess it's affecting our insulin levels because our insulin levels have to be elevated more in the evening when it's supposed to take a break to try to digest the food we're eating later in the day. And I think that just makes us hungry the next day, throws off our sleep cycle a little bit.
Okay, Lori, thank you so much. This was a fabulous conversation.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.